Hey guys, welcome back to the show. Hey, I got a level with you. I was starting to think probably less than 24 hours ago, right, about a topic that I came across yesterday when I was browsing the internet. And I came to the conclusion that maybe President-elect Trump's kryptonite is another global pandemic. You starting to see people come out, earlier this year. You have the surrogates of the Biden-Harris campaign or administration on mainstream media talking about another possible pandemic, how bad it could be, and this, that, and the other. Meanwhile, there was a report that came out of Congress that posted a lessons learned, and government officials, including Trump, in my opinion, government officials, surrogates on mainstream media, and unelected officials being on television pushing the COVID-19 shot on people when they didn't really want it. My body, my choice. Only when it comes to an abortion, right? But if you're interested in that video and that report, join my website and go to my YouTube channel and click on the video about the report that came out on December 2nd from Congress. And it basically outlined how poorly the United States responded to the pandemic. School shutdowns, churches shut down. If it was anything good and uplifting, best believe they shut it down. And so that's what this video is about. The video is about how mainstream media and the current cadre of folks who are running this country right now are prepping people's minds for a possible large-scale pandemic that may lead to the same shutdowns as I described before. And that is going to be, if it does happen, it's going to be more than staggering to Trump's efforts to deliver on his campaign promises. And we just have to understand that just because you hear something doesn't make it true. You have to do your own diligence and do your own research on how to keep yourself healthy, on how to detect a possible outbreak in your family, what to do to distance yourself or to prevent it altogether, what education tools that you have at your disposal, or what resources that do you have at your disposal to ensure that your kids are not being mistreated, as far as forcing them to wear masks and learning from home, which are two detrimental things that you can do to a young child who just wants to be around his friends and play, But without any further ado, here is an example of what I mean by the mainstream media surrogates of the Biden-Harris administration, or the cadre of people who are running this country right now. This is the type of primer that they're looking to do.
Joining our conversation, co-director of the Center for Vaccine Development at Texas Children's Hospital and Dean of the National School of Tropical Medicine at Baylor College of Medicine, Dr. Peter Hotez is here. Tim Miller is back with us as well. Dr. Hotez, let me just add a few more pieces of reporting into the conversation. The Associated Press last year reported that RFK Jr. has made his opposition to vaccines clear. Quote, in July, Kennedy said in a podcast interview that, quote, there's no vaccine that is safe and effective. RFK told Fox News that he still believes in the long ago debunked idea that vaccines can cause autism. In a 2021 podcast, he urged people to resist CDC guidelines on when kids should be vaccinated. Quote, I see somebody on a hiking trail carrying a little baby, and I say to him, Better not get them vaccinated, end quote, Kennedy said. Let me just deal in facts and science, since we have you, and it's such a treat to get to talk to you. On the link between vaccines and autism, I know this is an area of expertise for you. What are the facts?
Yeah, the facts are, Nicole, vaccines do not cause autism. In fact, I wrote a book about my daughter because I'm a pediatrician, a vaccine scientist. I develop vaccines. We developed a COVID vaccine reaching 100 million people in India and Indonesia in our laboratories. And I also am the parent of an adult daughter with autism. And I wrote a book called Vaccines Did Not Cause Rachel's Autism to put that away. And the massive scientific evidence showing there's no link, and they allege different vaccines. It started with the MMR vaccine, measles, mumps, rubella. Then Robert F. Kennedy Jr. came out in 2005, and Rolling Stone magazine said it was thimerosal. It's all nonsense. And then also what we know about the genetics of autism, and now we have a number of autism genes that have been identified. So we have a complete story about it. So that is completely erroneous. There is no link between vaccines and autism, and it's awful that he keeps on pushing it. I mean,
All right, so if there isn't a link between vaccines and autism, can you please explain why this chart is saying that from 2000, 1 in 150 children got autism? Now, currently, or as currently as this chart shows, it only goes up to 2020, 1 in 36. It went from 1 in 150 to 1 in 36. So if you're bold enough to say, well, that increase is not due to vaccines, then what does it do to then? What does it do to? What is the reason in the increase in autism of over just 20 years? Huh? Tell me that, man. I mean, there's so many holes in this.
Here's the reason why we need to care about this stuff, Nicole, is that we have some big picture stuff coming down the pike starting on January 21st.
You heard him?
Mr. Bloomberg mentioned H5N1. That I'm really worried about. It's all over. Big picture story about it. So that is rubella. Then Robert F. Kennedy
had to bring it back.
2005, and Rolling Stone magazine said it was thimerosal. It's all nonsense. And then also what we know about the genetics of autism, and now we have a number of autism genes that have been identified. So we have a complete story about it. So that is completely erroneous. There is no link between vaccines and autism, and it's awful that he keeps on pushing it. I mean, here's the reason why we need to care about this.
Take a listen.
Nicole, is that we have some big picture stuff coming down the pipe.
Like what?
Starting on January 21st. Mr. Bloomberg mentioned H5N1. That I'm really worried about. It's all over wild birds.
So it sounds like this doctor or whoever he is, it sounds like he's giving us some insider baseball, right? He said, we're in for some big picture stuff starting on January 21st, 2025. He didn't say 2025, but we're at the end of December. This report was done a couple weeks ago. So if you had to make a deduction or deduce the information that you have and make a conclusion, he's talking about 2025, right? He ain't talking about January 2024. It already passed, right? So he's on national television saying that, or basically suggesting that the incoming Trump administration is going to have a bomb thrown on them via biological warfare, just like a bomb was thrown on him in late 2019 and then entering into his last year of his presidency. The pandemic wrecked the Trump administration, which led to American people being tired and voting for Biden and Harris, and they further wrecked the country. We must not fall for this trick again.
on the western part of the United States and going up in the north. It's getting into the poultry. We're seeing sporadic human cases, no human-to-human transmission yet, but that could happen. It's in the cattle, it's in the milk, and that's just the beginning. We have another major coronavirus likely brewing in Asia. We've had SARS in 2002, SARS-2, COVID-19 in 2019.
Hey, we got all this stuff coming and all this other kind of stuff coming. Like, you fear mongering, dude. You fear mongering.
And we know these viruses are jumping from bats to people thousands of times a year, but there's still more.
Dude, he's still talking about viruses jumping from bats to people. Didn't he get the memo? The Congressional Select Subcommittee published a report on December 2nd, 2024 that debunked the wet market COVID-19 coming from a bat. Come on, man. You still pushing to the American people what they've already debunked. Even if they debunked it as recently as December 2nd, here it is, December 28th, and you still talk about the same crap, man. We not falling for this shit again.
We know that we have a big problem with mosquito-transmitted viruses all along the Gulf Coast, where I am here in Texas. So we're expecting dengue and possibly Zika virus coming back, or a Puche virus, maybe even yellow fever. And there's more. Then we have all this sharp rise in vaccine-preventable diseases going up because of, in part, the anti-vaccine activism that's so prominent right now. We have a fivefold rise in...
So there's nothing wrong with being anti-vaccine. You know, it's my body and my choice. And I guess it only matters to people like this guy when we're talking about abortions. Okay, I got it. But it's my body, my choice when it comes to what I eat, how I consume liquid, when I sleep. As long as it's not hurting anybody else, I'm good to go. I can make a decision on my own to either take a vaccine or not take a vaccine. And I got something else for you. Ever since I stopped taking vaccines altogether, my eczema went away. I don't have eczema anymore. And I believe that most of my eczema symptoms came from putting a foreign body into my body, foreign chemicals into my body. Look, I just want you to think about this for a second. You get a brand new newborn baby, and then 2 weeks later, you pump his or her leg up with at least 3 or 4 vaccines in one sitting. These are foreign bodies in a human body that didn't develop an immune system yet. But if the baby is breastfed and all this other kind of stuff, look, I'm not a doctor. Smash the like button if you like this so far. I'm not a doctor, but I can almost guarantee you that if the baby was breastfed all the way up to the normal time to cut them off of breastfeeding, the baby would get all the nutrients that it needed in order to stave off sickness. There's no proof that vaccines work, and he's claiming that there's no proof that if you don't take the vaccine, that'll work. So look, we're at an impasse. We're at a stalemate. And I would like to come back 10 years later and say, hey, I decided not to get vaccinated. How well I'm doing. And then you decided to get vaccinated. Let's see how well you're doing it and compare notes.
Pertussis cases, whooping cough over the last year, 15 measles outbreaks this year. We've got polio that's been in the wastewater in New York State. All that's going to come crashing down on January 21st on the Trump administration. We need a really, really good team to be able to handle this.
Tim Miller, all it.
So he just said that all of this stuff is going to come crashing down on January 21st, January, whatever he mentioned, right? Around, I think January 20th, 2025 is when President-elect Trump is supposed to be inaugurated. And then starting that afternoon, he's going to get to work, right? But this sounds like he's giving us a heads up about something that he heard people talk about, credible people talk about. Credible. And I got to tell you that if this is not cringeworthy, then I don't know what is. It's really ridiculous that they're using the same playbook that they used on us in 2019 to get us scared. And that's why I'm here to expose it. That is why I'm here to expose it. Yeah, we got to get through a couple commercials. I'm probably going to cut this out. All right.
Concerning new CDC report on the first severe human case of bird flu in the U.S. Samples taken from a patient in Louisiana show mutations that could make it easier for this virus to spread from person to person. Now, right now, there's no evidence it's been passed along to anyone else, and the CDC says risk to the public remains low. But experts warn a single mutation like this could potentially lead to another pandemic.
The virus may mutate and become more easily transmitted person to person. So the more this virus circulates, and specifically co-circulates with human strains, that's going to increase the odds of...
The only reason why the bird flu would jump from person to person or from an animal to a person is because it was engineered to do it that way. Okay? Let's not kid ourselves. These motherfuckers are still bioengineering. They are still performing gain of function research when they're not supposed to. It's illegal. But then they're experimenting and then they release it to the public so that they can enact national emergency, which gives the federal government and state governments sweeping powers to take more rights from U.S. citizens.
The virus evolving to more human-to-human transmission, and that of course could signal another pandemic.
Joining us now is Dr. Deborah Birx. You may remember her as the response coordinator for the White House Coronavirus Task Force.
Deborah Birx was behind the first pandemic that we recently experienced. Her credibility is shot. And I want you to notice how happy she looks. She looks so gosh happy. Why is she happy talking about a pandemic that may kill millions more people, according to them, huh?
In the first Trump administration, we are very fortunate to have your expertise as we try to figure out what's going on with the bird flu and what it could mean. So far, 65 human cases of bird flu have been reported in the U.S. this year, all contracted by animals. But now we have this new mutation in Louisiana. How worried should we be about bird flu potentially becoming another pandemic?
Well, I love the way you said 63 cases, because I have no idea how many cases there were or are, because our number one principle in preventing pandemics is detect. And if you go to the CDC website, you can see that they're monitoring more than 10,000 exposures, but they've only tested 530. What does that mean? That means we're not testing enough. And we know from other viruses that a lot of the spread can be asymptomatic. So we kind of have our head in the sand about how widespread this is from the zoonotic standpoint, from the animal to human standpoint. Now, also remember, most of those cases described to date happened in the spring and the summer, not when we had H1N1 circulating right now, when we're running the flu pandemic throughout the United States. So we have rising flu cases, and now we have still zoonotic events coming. So now you've set up for potentially a farm worker getting H5N1, also getting the current flu strain, and reassorting in that individual. To me, that's almost a bigger threat to these mutations happening in individuals over time.
When you say reassorting in that person, what does that mean?
Okay, so the H5 virus, which doesn't adapt too well to our upper respiratory tract and is preventing us from getting infected, but can infect cows and pigs and cats and dogs. So our flu, which has the binding sites for us, for our nasal passages. Viruses are very specific, and so they're very...
Right. So basically what she's saying is, in the summertime, you had the H5N1 or whatever this bird flu crap is, right? But the regular human flu doesn't come around until like the fall, winter time. And so she's saying that this time of year, the bird flu and the regular human flu coexist. And if, if a person has both strains of the virus, it can mutate and then be able to jump from person to person easily like that. However, here's a flaw, though, unless I'm missing something. A flaw in her argument is that if it's hard to catch the bird flu, if it's hard for humans to catch the bird flu, how can they get it in the first place? How can they get it in the first place? I mean, I could have the human flu and, come across some bird flu mist somewhere as I'm shopping and running errands. And if the bird flu is hard to get by humans, how could her argument stand up? If it's hard for humans to get the bird flu, then how can a person have the bird flu and human regular flu in their body at the same time without there being some daggone engineering? You see what I'm talking about? And I'm going to play a little bit more of this now, but I'm going to conclude real quick because this is all ridiculous. I'm going to leave the links in the description below so you could check this stuff out yourself. Don't take my word for it. Hey, smash the like button if you're enjoying this content right now. And I really hope that you are enjoying this version of the news.
Very animal or human specific. Now we have human flu circulating. At the same time, we have the zoonotic flu circulating.
And the zoonotic is for our viewers again,
the bird flu, yes.
Okay.
So we have the animal flu, let's call it the animal flu, and now we have human flu co-circulating. And at any time, someone could get both of those unknowingly. Mm-hmm. And particularly at
But if it's hard to get for humans to get the bird flu, how they gonna get it? How they gonna get it? You got one case in Louisiana somewhere. They may take that case and use that as a stepping stone to further develop it so it can go from human to human more easily.
California, where all the dairy workers now are getting exposed, Flu is rising in the South and into California. So we should be monitoring carefully that dual exposure, because if you get both of the flus at the same time, the H5 flu, the bird flu, could get the genes from the human flu and make it infectious to humans in the same way that our current flu is.
And Nick,
look, that what she just said, that's not gonna happen out of thin air. That's not gonna happen out of thin air. It's gonna take some laboratory manipulation to make it that way. You know, I'm done with this, guys. I am totally done watching this video. Listen, I'm going to wrap up by saying that Steve Bannon, Peter Navarro, Laura Loomer, Megyn Kelly, Tim Pool, look, Dan Bongino, get your act together, because the fight that you're fighting is not the real fight. The real fight is for us to stay united, understanding that MAGA is comprised of many different individuals who understand what the MAGA movement is all about. But at the same time, let's stop nitpicking this, that, or the other. Look, if President-elect Trump wants Elon Musk and Vivek Ramaswamy to head up their Doge department and consult federal agencies on how to be more efficient, then let that happen, right? If the pool of American scientists is so low, is so shallow, that we have to look for foreign talent who will be loyal to the United States to do the type of work that you want to do, what's wrong with that? There's nothing wrong with that. We have to retain talent. That's it. And we don't have it in our U.S. population pool yet. You know, we celebrate proms and prom queens and all this other kind of stuff instead of celebrating science, technology, engineering, and math. That is the problem. That's the problem, Laura Loomer. That's the problem, Steve Bannon. That's the problem. Okay? Stop infighting. I agree that we need to fire Mike Johnson because he doesn't have balls big enough to do the type of work we want him to do. We need to get somebody else in there that's going to do the job, right? But stop infighting. This is the real fight. The pandemic was Trump's Achilles heel, and back in 2019, 2020, it will be his Achilles heels again. Thank you for watching. I'll see you on the next video.